everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 6 of TRIGUN Stampede. And yes, last episode was really good. I really liked last episode. The way that point of view was done, the way that time was done, the timeline, the way that it went from the past to the present, and kind of interwove all that together. That was really, really neat. I really liked the technicality of it. And then yeah, Vash just wanting to try to save someone that Wolfwood was like, they are beyond saving. But were they? That's the big question, right? That's the big question. Were they beyond saving or were they not beyond saving? So I'm really enjoying this kind of like the dynamic of the group. Roberto still feels to me kind of like the odd man out now, especially since Wolfwood has joined, because to me, and I've talked a little bit about this, but it's not really a spoiler. You guys are kind of seeing it now. But Wolfwood and Roberto kind of have a very similar brooding dynamic. So it's kind of like one has to stand out beyond the other. And Wolfwood is clearly the more charismatic and mysterious one of the two. So he stands out more than Roberto. But I will say this. I am enjoying Roberto's role as kind of being the old mentor figure that's very wary of Wolfwood. But he also knows that he can't really change Vash's mind. And he doesn't know everything about Vash, as him and Meryl are finding out. So there's a lot of different little pieces with the dynamic that works really well. And so that is intriguing. And then meanwhile, Wolfwood is a double agent, supposedly working with Zazie, potentially working with Knives, probably. And Knives is doing this weird stuff where the little girl is not a little girl, and her and the doctor and them have been experimenting on people for years and trying to do something, and it's a lot, and I like it. But we're on episode 6, so this is the halfway point of season 1. I am excited because I have a My Anime list. I've shared it in the Discord before, I believe, on Patreon. But I do have a My Anime list, and I have seen where they're doing a season 2 of this series, which is great because 12 episodes is, frankly, at this point, not enough. So I'm very curious, since they've announced a second season, like where this season is going to end off at, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it. So that's good, but I'm glad to know there is a second season that's going to be in the works down the pipeline at some point, right? So that is very exciting. But yeah, what we're going to get at this point, I have a feeling, the map illustrated, like the map had some parts that were like in lettering that was bigger than others, and it seems like we're following a trajectory of going to those places. So I'm going to be curious, and we have to find our way to July because that's where Knives is. So we're just like on a little Oregon trail going across. But real quick before we start, I want to give a special shout out over to Patreon to all the patrons who support me. I greatly appreciate your support, obviously every week, every month. But these individuals go above and beyond to not only support me, but throw in some extra money each month to help me make this channel what I can. So I really appreciate that. So a special shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Anna, to Ashy Got Snow Bitches, to Be Happy, to Brian, to Dana, to Destiny Marie, to Edgar, to Eric, to Kiri, to Loisiji, to Matthew Palfinier, to Nameless Monster, to Sunspots, to Translucent Men, to Shimoyama, to Trails, to Tyrone, as well as Zakiel and Linden. Thank you all so much for all of your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, what are we gonna get? That is the question, but we're gonna find out, y'all. I'm excited. I hope y'all are too, but we're not gonna waste any more time. We're gonna dive right into episode 6 of TRIGUN Stampede, and we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I don't think, has Whiteboard Coon made an appearance in this show yet? If not, this is Whiteboard Coon, my helper and explainer of all things, and I'm glad to bring him out because this episode was great. I really am liking TRIGUN Stampede. As I've said before, the first couple episodes, it takes a little while to get in, especially if you've watched the OG series. You're kind of like, but then by the time episode 3 hits, you're like, okay, no, different. The tone is dark, the tone is interesting, and the choices they're making with characters are very interesting, and like, yes. So obviously, the spoiler corner, we have lots of things to discuss, but before we get to that, Wolfwood's character, mainly, what I like the most about this is the understanding that Wolfwood and Vash are like having opposite Benjamin Button effects going on, right? So you have the idea that Vash is seemingly this old man. Vash has got the Doctor Who syndrome, right? Supposedly. He's this old man that looks young. He's this old man that looks younger than he actually is. Because, you know, I like that Roberto's kind of like, yeah, no, he hasn't aged in 20 years. That's a problem. So are we sure we want to keep following this? Meryl's like, yes. Because Meryl's amazing. And so, yeah, Vash is the one that looks old. He looks young, but is actually very old, supposedly. Or at least older than he looks. And then you have Wolfwood. Who... he's actually very young, but looks older than he actually is. Now, there is a question of how old is Wolfwood, because he seemed like he was maybe 11 or 12 when he was taken away, maybe 13, and then he aged very quickly over the span of a few months, and obviously Livio has also done the same. So there is the question of, like, how old is Wolfwood actually? Is he actually like 14 or 15? Which would explain a lot with his character and why he acts the way that he does. That would explain a lot of Wolfwood kind of being so conflicted with Vash and being like, well, what about this and that? And his viewpoints being somewhat kind of skewed. If Wolfwood's actually like a 15-year-old kid that's stuck in like a 30-year-old man's body, that explains a lot. So I'm like, okay, cool. And then Vash, of course, it explains his... reasoning that he's an older soul trapped in a younger person's body. It's just they both have like the Benjamin Button effects in different areas and they're coming at it from different ways. Love it. Absolutely love it. But we find out from Blue Summers, his character, the idea that Wolfwood, he wants to save too much. Which is exactly what he chides Vash for, saying Vash wants to save too much. They're not so different, him and Vash. Not so different, you and I, right? So I'm all for this. I love this. I love the idea of Wolfwood being this experiment. Like Rollo, they're experiments that have gone wrong, but his whole thing is that he is super compatible with the drug. So we get the idea from Priest William. We find out his name finally. He's Priest William. Okay. We have Priest William, and he talks about how Wolfwood and essentially Livio both seem like they are S+ compatible with the drugs that they give. So Rollo was not compatible. It morphed his body. It like completely warped his mind. He lost all sense of reasoning, and he just became this mindless, seemingly until Vash kind of reached him at the end, this mindless machine. And Livio seems like he's maybe Livio seems like he's in between. Wolfwood seems like he was the perfect specimen. Wolfwood was perfect. He was compatible with the drugs. The only thing with Wolfwood is he can regenerate, which is a thing. He can regenerate, but has to drink the meds. He has to take the medicine in order for it to work. He has to drink it not only to power his laser, but also to regenerate his body. If he doesn't drink the meds, it doesn't regenerate. Whereas Livio seems like Livio can regenerate without taking the meds, but at the cost of his brain seems a little bit more addled than Wolfwood's does. And it seems like Livio's running on like hyper-focused must-save Wolfwood mode because they were bestie friends, and Wolfwood seems a little bit more autonomous, I guess is the way to put it. Now, my fear is that Blue Summers, who has this telekinetic power, which is freaky as shit, my fear is that because Livio can't just be killed by bullets alone and can heal himself, my fear is that, because Blue Summers seems like he's just there to cause nihilistic destruction, right? He's as emo as it gets, which is a fun time. My fear is that Livio is going to end up, because him and Wolfwood, best bros for life, I feel like Blue Summers is not going to be happy if Livio doesn't do what he's supposed to do and instead decides to crush Livio. And if you can't kill him with bullets, I could just see Blue Summers just going, and like crushing Livio's head or making it explode like scanners or something like that, you know, which would be terrifying. Do I think this show would do it? Yep, it's been pretty gory so far, so I think it would not be afraid to do it. But which makes me very sad because I think that would be Wolfwood's breaking point, because he only joined up with this Eye of Michael nonsense because he wanted to save Livio, and now he's found out that it didn't matter. Livio still became a monster too. So we have this idea of the Eye of Michael, which I'm assuming is the detail. Michael was an angel that usually caused, I think Michael was the angel that came down and caused the Passover. I think that Michael was an angel that was constantly doing battles and killing, you know, for the sake of God, and he came down through Passover. That was the angel Michael. So the Eye of Michael seems quite fitting. I'm sure Knives picked that out. Seems fitting. But now we have an idea that this thing here, the symbol that we've seen, is this religious symbol that's the Eye of Michael. That makes sense. That all is adding up. And it's kind of terrifying that this religious cult has been taking in these kids under the guise of them being children of blessing and then making them into super soldiers. That's absolutely terrifying. And then we see Wolfwood tracking down one of the members from before that was a fugitive and killing him and saying he was a monster. I love the shot of him with the cross in the shadow. He's just walking around with this gun that I'm assuming, took with him as a weapon. Or he didn't take it. He was given it because he's working for Blue Summers and them to try to save Livio. Ah! I love the motivation. It's great. I'm like, that is wonderful. We're going to skip past this OP. So again, we get lots of things on the radio telling us what's going on, telling us what's happening to the authorities. I'm wondering if I keep thinking that the voice of the radio announcer is a different OG character, and that's kind of what's going on, so I'm curious to see that. The authorities have not yet been able to track down the plant thief terrorizing the region. So someone is stealing plants, including red plants that were scheduled for disposal. So as far as humanity knows, the red plants were not of use anymore. They weren't powering the plants, so they were supposed to be disposed of. But this thief is also taking them. So fun times. The culprit behind the spree isn't well versed in plant technology. Oh no, I think quite the opposite, actually. No, yeah, I love that the radio announcer's like, well, they're taking the defective plants, so they must not know a lot about the plants. No, I think that they do. So, and of course, what's so funny about this, now that we know that Wolfwood is actually a lot younger than he appears, what's so funny about this is that, you know, Wolfwood and Vash are both like, you know, looking over at, you know, opposite sides. Wolfwood's actions make sense. He's a literal kid in an adult body. Vash has the heart of a child in this ancient body, so it all makes sense, right? That just absolutely makes sense. The July government continues to search for key witnesses. And so I like that Roberto turns off the radio as soon as Vash is mentioned. He's like, no, we know. We know about the humanoid typhoon. We know, we're with him. But also, I'm sure that whatever's on the radio is not accurate to what they actually know, right? Although I kind of wish they would have held on a little bit longer to see what the news was saying about him. But they're like, we're going to get you on the sand steamer that takes you up to the port to July so you can go after Knives, because that's what you're after, right? And Meryl just assumes they're all going. And Roberto's like, no, this is where we check out. Okay, so there is, I wanted to see what Roberto's magazine said. It said, appearing in the 7th City live tour. There's like some kind of band playing, and it says the Geo Soul. What is happening? What's going on? And he's like, we're going to return to headquarters and write up our article. So, interesting. Okay, there was like a wanted poster. I wanted to go back and see what it looked like. Because he turned the page, I wanted to see. Okay, it says Bart was a Naito, the comics artist. Interesting. Wanted dead or alive. Escaped from July prison. I don't know if the comics artist is like, if that's a little tongue-in-cheek, like, inside joke with the studio, or if that's going to be, he doesn't look like, it looks like more of an inside joke than it does an actual villain in this series. So that's interesting. But yeah, Wolfwood and Vash are just like, whatever. They're like, whatever. They're both with like Kit, and Meryl's like, yeah, they're still fighting from before. So I really like the sand steamer and how they do it. This isn't really a spoiler from the OG series. The sand steamer is present in the original series, but it's not really given like the big fanfare that it is here. It's explained, and you get what the sand steamer is, that it's a transport. But what I like about this episode is that they actually go through all of the little mechanics. They show the security that's on the ship, because obviously it's their one passage across this ocean desert that has no other way to trek through it. So there's that. It shows you like the mechanics of them, like with the boats, like getting everything. They have the flaggers, getting everything lined up to leave. And they explain through the map, which the OG series doesn't really do, that there's an ocean desert and this is the way to traverse around it to get to July. So I like that. I like the mechanics. I like they go through the motions with it. Everything looks worn down and kind of faded. It's really nice. I really like that they take the time to kind of explain the sand steamer and how it's going to be used. Now, I like here where Wolfwood's like, I thought you guys were buddies. And Vash is like, no. Because here's the thing, I think Vash, I like this a lot because, yeah, on the surface, Wolfwood's like, well, that seems really cold. You're just leaving Meryl and Roberto behind. But I feel like Vash knows now what Knives is capable of. He's learned what's been going down with people like Rollo. Vash knows that things have gotten pretty bad. And I definitely think that Vash is worried that if Meryl and Roberto come along with him, they are going to be in danger. And he's like, I don't want that to happen. I don't want to watch somebody like Rollo die again through Meryl and Roberto. So he's like, no, it's fine if they don't follow me. It's better if they stay behind. I'm going straight to Knives to take care of business. I'll see him afterwards if it works out, you know? So I do like that. I like that Vash, for being as goofy as he was at the beginning, is very much like, no, I'm on a mission now. I realize that things are getting a bit dark. I need to just truck through and get my mission done with, right? I love it. And Wolfwood's like, well, that's really cold. And so Meryl's like, well, I don't understand why we can't go. And I like Roberto is still trying to mansplain her. He's like, I didn't think you'd understand. I was like, oh, shut up. She's like, well, how can we let him get away? And Roberto is beating around the bush. He's like, well, we're just a tabloid. He's too much trouble. And she's like, well, what about this? And he's like, what kind of monster looks the same for 20 years? And she's like, well, are you scared? And he's like, say what you will. He doesn't deny it. I'm like, I think Roberto is scared, because I think Roberto thought this was originally just a lead to find some information about some guy wanted for some crimes. And Roberto has very quickly realized, nope, this is a lot darker and deeper than we expected. We should pull out now. But Meryl, being the young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed girl that she is, she's like, are we really just abandoning this because you're scared of what could happen? She's like, aren't we reporters? Shouldn't we stake our lives on this? And Roberto's like, not really. He's like, we're working for a tabloid. We're working for the National Enquirer. We're not getting paid that much. Which is really funny, but I like that Meryl's very persistent. She's like, well, come on now. Why aren't we doing this? And I love that Roberto's like, really? And she's like, I love she just stares at him, right? So then, yeah, I like that we get everything in the ship. We see the passengers getting settled in. I do think it's a little cheesy where we have the plant, the danger. It's like you're trying to keep the plant secret because you really don't want it getting stolen. What better way to keep it secret than to put a bunch of danger signs and keep out signs like Walking Dead style on the door? I think just a personnel only sign would have been a little bit more inconspicuous. That is my one complaint about the episode, is that you are literally begging for the villains to go into that room to take the plant by putting all of these like obvious signs on there. I'm like, come on, Sand Steamer, what we doing? But whatever. That's my only complaint about the episode. I'll take it. And they're like, it's the largest sand steamer in no man's land. And they're like, our plant's the strongest one ever. I'm like, why would you advertise that when there are plant thieves running about, right? I do like the idea that they talk about going around everything, that they're going to go around and go through July that way, because that's literally the only port and place to go. And what I also like is that Vash is like, why are you following me? Vash confronts Wolfwood and is like, why are you following me? Why are you coming with me? And Wolfwood's like, well, I'm your babysitter. And Vash is like, I don't really need a babysitter. And obviously Wolfwood is watching Vash to make sure that he gets to knives. The thing that's interesting about this is the mission here, right? Because Wolfwood seems like Wolfwood's mission, supposedly, as he was communicating to Zazzy, was to befriend Vash and get him to knives. That seemed like the plan. So what the fudge is Livio doing? Why is Livio showing up and ruining that? Like, it would make sense that if you're trying to get Vash to knives, just let them stay on the ship. Don't bother them and whatever, right? But I don't know if Livio and Blue Summers and them are starting to suspect that Wolfwood might... I feel like they're testing Wolfwood. I feel like Livio showing up, as well as Blue Summers, as well as Zazzy, and as well as this Bad Lads gang, right? I feel like it's all testing Wolfwood to make sure that he is still committed to the cause. Being like, look, you say you're working for us, for Livio, but are you? Are you really working for us, Wolfwood? Or are you going to turn tail and be a double agent and end up working with Vash? Because we can't have that. No. So I feel like they're testing Wolfwood using Livio to be like, look, if you don't do what we say, we're going to hurt your friend. Remember your friend? Remember how he's now one of us? Remember how you want to keep him safe? Well, that's not going to happen if you... And also, Blue Summer seems like a complete nihilist and just has no qualms with killing anybody. So it would not surprise me if Blue Summers was just like, oh, well, you know, this is what happens when you don't listen to what we say. Bye, and just gets rid of Livio. Would not surprise me. Would not surprise me. Blue Summers just doesn't seem to care. I'm like, oh my God. So, but yeah, I really liked the idea of they're just sitting here talking, and then Vash is like, don't you have something you want to protect? And Wolfwood's like, I don't want to talk about it. And then we see the only reason you survived this long is because other people have died instead. Which is, you know, pot calling the kettle black. And he's like, that's not what I mean, and you know it. And he's like, I don't get you at all. It's like, no, you do. The thing is, Vash and Wolfwood get each other very well, and that's the problem. But then, yeah, Livio just shows up and has the guns like he's gonna just suddenly... And I love the blankets flying out of the cart, and he shoots through the blankets, and just the shot of Wolfwood looking over and seeing Vash, and then seeing Livio. Oh my God. And yeah, Livio with the hair pulled back. And he has like the weird thing over his eye. Like, his eye was what was affected when he was a kid, so that seems like that's like, it looks like a sniper eye, right? And he's like, run and get away. Oh, I hate it. It tore my heart out, because you see this beautiful backstory with Wolfwood and Livio and how they love each other. And then you see them as like faux adults. They're still children in adult bodies firing at one another. And Livio seems like, he says to Vash, I still need to catch up to Wolfwood. The expressions on Wolfwood, and the fact that Hisoya does an amazing job of voicing like pained characters. The characters that Hisoya plays are constantly put in situations where they're in pain, and Hisoya does a great job of portraying that pain, but I'm like, no! Damn it, no! And oh my God, Blue Summers is voiced by Uchiyama, right? Uchida. He's voiced by the same voice actor as Suki from Haikyuu, as Shigaraki from My Hero Academia. The moment he started talking, I'm like, oh, you sound like a moody and depressed Suki. So I was like, yes, you're Tsukishima. It's his voice actor. And he always does a great job of playing extremely emo, morose characters. So I'm like, of course you would be playing him. Of course you would. The one thing that I really loved was that Vash instantly put the gun up to Livio's head, being like, you know that Vash wasn't going to shoot him, but he was trying to intimidate him to make him stand down. But the problem is, Livio can regenerate his body, so he's not deterred by it, and he still tries to get at Vash anyway, and it's like, son of a bitch, no! And of course, Wolfwood, meanwhile, is watching his childhood friend fight this new friend that he's trying to, like, transport. He's like, why can't we have nice things? And him trying to... Also, the floodwaters that Wolfwood's wearing now make so much sense because he keeps growing. And he's growing past, like, his child. It, like, shows that he's growing past what his body is supposed to be capable of. The imagery, it all makes sense now. And he's like, what gives? What are you doing here? And then, I hate the fact that, like, Livio opens up his eye and the one eye moves beyond the others. Like, it just looks like a sniper thing. It also looks like the same skull thing that's on Livio, so, that's on Blue Summers, so, I hate it. Oh. And then, Once Upon a Time in Hopeland. I love the 2D. The 2D backstory where he gets taken, where Livio gets taken to the orphanage, and we see all these kids here that I'm assuming are going to end up becoming test subjects, and him and Wolfwood becoming friends. And so Livio seems to be an orphan, just like Wolfwood. And I just love everything about this flashback. The 2D animation, the art style, the moon with Wolfwood and Livio becoming friends, like smoking the worm legs and doing that like cigarettes because they're just kids in the Badlands. The idea of them holding hands. There's definitely like a little bit of like we are platonic, like queer platonic besties, like me and him, right? Just like this beautiful moment between the two of them. And then Wolfwood made his life better. And I love Wolfwood's such like a little card, like him going, like thinking he's gonna fall. And then feeding the Thomases. And then Wolfwood got taken away to be an experiment. And Livio followed. It's so tragic. And Vash, meanwhile, has no clue what's going on. I felt bad for Vash in this episode, because Vash is just sitting there like, I don't know what to do. What is happening? What's going on? Could you back me up? Could you explain what's going on? Hi, how's it going? I felt bad for Vash, because Vash has no clue what's happening. Meanwhile, Meryl and Roberto, I love Roberto's like, look, we should probably turn back. Look, we're probably going to get this car wrecked. Look, I'm not going to be responsible if the insurance claims don't work out. And Meryl's like, I got it. Shut up. Leave me alone. I made this decision. I get it. Meryl's like, I understand that we're doing something crazy. And then these Bad Lad gang members show up like a bunch of Mad Max Fury Road members. And it looks absolutely insane. So yes. So the people show up for Nicholas. I also love that Nicholas, like, has always gone by his full name, Nicholas D. Wolfwood, like it's his agency, his sense of identity. But then, yeah, these guys show up clapping. The clapping of their hands when the goons show up, it felt very Neon Genesis Evangelion. It felt like, congratulations, like it's the most mocking thing in the world. Terrifying, right? But them taking Wolfwood away. And then everybody waves, but Livio's not there. The trippy drug thing, so it says test subject HL106, chemical aptitude S+. The whole trippy scene with the light bulbs and everything, it's what's so amazing about it is that it's a different way of showing the experimentation that like Rolo went through in this trippy 2D way, but showing like Wolfwood's entire mental state being like distorted and controlled. Like it's crazy and I love it. It's so trippy. But him seeing, we see the little vials that he's gonna have to drink to regenerate. And then we see Livio waving to him and them becoming like his friends from the orphanage. Like it's insanity. And then like the worm growing. The accelerated growth comes at a price. And then him becoming the moth. Yeah. And then showing like his body just growing and like there's just blood and everything. Oh my God. He's grown so much in a few months. An unavoidable side effect. So that makes me scared because I'm like, does that mean that Wolfwood's going to keep aging super fast and just like, because, you know, butterflies and stuff don't have a very long lifespan. Does that mean that Wolfwood's going to keep on aging and growing very quickly and then die very quickly? I don't like that. I like Wolfwood's character so much, especially in this episode. So I'm like, is he gonna just keep growing and aging too quickly? And then Vash is gonna be like, what the fudge? No. And they're like, how terrible. And so then, yeah, it shows him getting the stash and breaking out. Ugh. And he almost makes it. But then Blue Summer's contorting him. Oh my gosh. So Blue Summers, fun time. Blue Summers with his like freaky blue hair saying, you have a gift. You're going to join the Eye of Michael. And he's like, we worship a beautiful angel, which I'm assuming is Knives. It ain't the little girl. It's Knives. Blue Summers is worshiping Knives. Of course he is. But basically, I like that Wolfwood's like, no, I don't want to join you all. And he's like, you're going to eliminate all the abnormalities in Master Knives' noble plan. So basically, whatever Knives tells you to do, you're going to do it. You're going to be his executioner. You're the Punisher. And you're going to do all of this for us. And if you don't, then we're going to hurt Livio. Like, it's so cruel. And Livio joined to catch up with him. I hate it. He's like, isn't this your little brother? And you can already see he's been experimented on. If you won't join us, he'll work for us instead. And the cruel thing is that Wolfwood agrees to join them to save Livio, but Blue Summers and them were going to use Livio anyway. Like, they just lied to Wolfwood to get him to do whatever they wanted. And he's got the mentality of a kid. So, of course, he thinks, well, yeah, I'll just do it. But it's like, no, they were going to use him anyway. And, like, Wolfwood reminds me a lot of a character from... He reminds me a lot of a character from another series, from the case study of Vanitas, where he's basically self-sacrificing so that he can keep other kids from the orphanage safe. But you know they're going to keep using him, so it's like, ugh. Now, Blue Summer says his power isn't mere nerve control or electrical impulse. So there's something else there, possibly with his telekinetic powers. So that's exciting. I don't know where that went. Where did that go? There we go. So that's exciting. Find out more about Blue Summers as we go. But I hate it. I hate the fact that they've already experimented on Livio, so it was already too late. And then the priest William's like, don't defile my creation. Meanwhile, we go back to Vash being like, I don't know what's going on. But he's like, you clearly know this guy. You know him. You guys have history. Care to explain so I can help the situation? And Wolfwood's like, no. He's like, somebody's going to get killed. And Wolfwood's like, you shouldn't worry about other people. And Vash is like, well, you drug me into this. You know him, so you have to help him. And it's like, in that moment, Vash is like, you have to help him. And Wolfwood's like, tell me something I don't know. And it's like, Vash and Wolfwood are so similar. They both want to help so much. And Wolfwood's like, this, and he says it's too late. And Vash is like, why is it too late? What are you talking about? But he doesn't know about Wolfwood. He doesn't know about the experiment. He doesn't know about anything. And so Vash is like, well, fine. Then I'm just going to keep my nose in the middle of it until y'all tell me what's going on. I love it. I love that Vash is kind of in the dark about all this. But he's like, I'm not backing down. I'm going to keep fighting until someone tells me something. And that's when Livio tells him, I have to catch up to him. And Vash is like, what? What's going on? And then these guards keep getting in the way, right? Keep getting in the way. But, I hate it. And Wolfwood's like, I told you to stay back, Needle Noggin. He's like, I can't let you two kill each other. Which is exactly why Blue Summers has sent him. Because he's just torturing Wolfwood. He's just torturing Wolfwood. Blue Summers just seems like he's just torturing him. And Zazzy's just sitting there making his, like, cat's cradle with the web, being like, isn't this fun? And Blue Summers is like, yes, it's very fun. Oh, my God. If his brother dies, the other children in the orphanage will be next. Humans have such bad taste. Now, Zazie says humans have such bad taste. So is Zazie human or is he a plant? That is the question. Blue Summers doesn't give off an impression either way. He does have the creepy skull, though. He's purely trying to protect too much. Yep. He wants to save too much. He's getting greedy, right? And Wolfwood's like, just get out of here. And he's like, I'll beat your ass myself. I love this ship is like, we are currently assessing the situation. I'm like, oh my God. And then Blue Summers is like, I don't understand love and attachment. Emotions are too much. It's like you have characters like Rolo and Livio who seem to have had their minds altered to the point where their emotional capacity has been affected. Then you have Wolfwood, whose emotional capacity has not been affected, and Blue Summers even comments on it. He's like, your mind hasn't been altered by the drugs, which is so weird, right? And that's why Priest William likes him so much, because he's like the perfect test subject. And then you have Blue Summers, who's like, I don't think Blue Summers had the attachment at all. I don't think he ever had it. It's not that he's had it taken away, he just didn't get it to begin with. He's like, you still can't give up on your little brother. Shouldn't you just accept reality already? Oh my God. Blue Summers is terrifying. And so the ship is getting ran off course. And to add insult to injury, it's now headed towards the orphanage. The sand steamer is heading towards the orphanage. I like that the caution thing says, keep your seatbelt on. So now we have the sand steamer going towards the orphanage, which is fun, instead of going to July, which is terrifying. Yeah. And then we have this gang showing up, the Bad Lads gang. And then Blue Summers saying, who are you going to kill? Who are you going to save? And Zazie just being like, isn't this great? So I want to talk about spoilers, but this episode was amazing. I love it so much. I want to talk about spoilers, but I gotta get out here with y'all before I can do that. So if you're not sticking around for spoilers, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. But we will be back next week with episode 7. We're at the halfway point. Fun times. Good place to be. But I want to talk about spoilers. So if you're not sticking around for those, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And I'll be back very soon with more TRIGUN Stampede. Oh, I almost made it the entire discussion without saying legato. And then at the very end, I was like, shit, I need to go to spoilers because I'm starting to say legato. Saying just Blue Summers is really hard, but legato's here. I was so worried we weren't going to get legato in this series, but we are. We're getting freaking legato. He's as emo as ever. He may be more emo than he was in the original series. Dear God. So, okay. Roberto's entire role now makes sense. You know why? Because we can't have Millie hitting on a 14-year-old. The whole reason they made Roberto a man is because we can't have Wolfwood getting hit on by a woman when he's barely a man himself. Oh my God. That's the reason. Is that the reason? That seems like it's the reason. We had to make Roberto an old man because we can't have Millie having sex with child Wolfwood. Oh my God. No, because in the OG series, Wolfwood and Millie get it on before he dies. And we can't have that in this series because he's actually a kid that's been modified into an adult that could be having a Benjamin Button effect and could die and age out in front of us. Oh my God, I don't want to see that. Or not. No. The one thing that's interesting is this kind of changes the whole game because now, as long as, there is still a chance Wolfwood can die in this series. One, because he either ages and keeps aging until he's an old man in front of Vash, and Vash is like, what the fudge? There's that possibility. And two, we've established that even though Wolfwood can regenerate and heal his wounds, it's only if he takes the medicine. So if he doesn't take the medicine, he's not going to regenerate. So that is a caveat. So that he could still die in this series, but it's just a matter of whether he takes it or not. Or whether his cells keep on aging and he dies out like a moth. He only has a 24-hour lifespan. not literally 24 hours, but I mean his lifespan is infinitely shorter because of the experimentation. So that's so frustrating. I don't think we had Livio in the original series. He might be in the manga, but I've not gotten to the manga yet, so don't tell me, because I'm eventually going to react to the manga. Don't tell me if he's in the manga. I don't want to know. But he was not in the original series. Instead, it was Chapel. Chapel was the one that raised him and taught him how to become a soldier and become a part of the Gung Ho gang. So in this, I don't know if Priest William is supposed to be the Chapel equivalent, maybe, but I kind of like how they handle it in this, that basically Wolfwood became this assassin for them under the guise that he's doing it to save Livio and save the orphanage. Now, there's a lot of plot lines that are starting to overlap and twist and turn at this point, which is interesting. We didn't, like I said, have Livio in the original. We had the Bad Lad gang in the original, but then we had Dynamite was the leader of it, Neon Dynamite. We haven't seen him yet, although the Bad Lads gang have all the neon on them. So I'm like, are we going to get him in the next episode? See, there was a whole plot line around this point of the OG series where they were on a sand steamer, they were headed across, and the Bad Lads gang tried to take over the sand steamer, and Neon Dynamite was the ringleader of that, and the sand steamer was going to run into a specific point that was going to destroy the ship. Well, now the specific point is the orphanage, so the stakes are a little bit higher than they were back then. But I'm wondering if Dynamite's going to show up next episode. If he's there, Zazzy and Legato are there too, so what the fudge? I feel like Legato and Zazzy are there just to make sure things go the way that they're supposed to, which is terrifying. I think Legato's going to kill Livio. I think that in the end, Livio is going to not kill Vash, not kill Wolfwood, and not do what Legato wants. And Legato, being the nihilistic bastard that he is going to be like, bonds? Friendship? Childhood friends? No. And he's going to kill him. And then Vash is going to like have to confront Wolfwood and be like, what the fudge was all this about? And Wolfwood's going to have to tell him. So that's going to be interesting. Or Wolfwood won't tell him and we'll go separate ways and just leave the whole thing, but I don't think that's going to happen. Then you have Meryl and Roberto coming along being like, we're going to follow through. I will say, Roberto's role makes more sense now because we can't have Wolfwood having sex with the lady when he's still a kid. That makes more sense. So we make it Roberto. But I still wish that they were not reporters, but insurance people, because the insurance subplot would make more sense with why they have to follow Vash. Here, it's a little flimsy, the whole reporter thing, because Roberto has a pretty good point. He's like, we're just a random tabloid. We don't have to follow Vash around. We can go back, write our article, and be done. And so Meryl's whole plot of, no, we need to have the story. We're reporters. Let's stake our lives on this. It doesn't quite make as much narrative sense for them to keep following, and it makes Meryl look a little bit more, I think it makes Meryl look worse in this version because she's just like, we have to get the story, and Roberto's like, oh, sweet child, sweet summer child, we're just a tabloid bunch of reporters, we don't have that big of an obligation. It does make Meryl seem like she's going out of her way more to chase down Vash, which we know that she likes Vash and she's, wants to find out more about him and she wants to know the mystery, and it's her job as a reporter to crack the case. But it does seem like more of a stretch that they're following him. Whereas in the original, they were insurance claims. And so they're like, no, part of our job is to follow Vash around and make sure he doesn't, destroy wherever he's going, because we don't want people filing insurance claims. So it had this more kind of like funny, cynical, practical reason for them to be following Vash. And then in the OG series, the insurance company finally decides to deem anything involving Vash as an act of God, which is hilarious because they're angels. And then it just they pulled back at that point. So narratively, the whole subplot with Meryl and Millie made much more sense in the OG version, and I think was handled a lot better. It's a little bit flimsier in this version because they're reporters, but whatever. I'm just saying, it's more well done in the original. However, I like Wolfwood in this version a lot. I like the idea that he was a kid, and that he is a kid that has been hyped up on these drugs to make him older. It's kind of like a Bucky Barnes Captain America effect sort of situation. It's literally Wolfwood is Captain America, literally, and Livio is Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. That's what this is. And I'm fine with it. I think it works really well. I think it really works for Wolfwood's character with how he's just kind of like, the attitude he has towards Vash can seem childish at times. Makes sense, because that's how he is. He's a literal kid. The whole stuff with Livio, it's just like angst in the best way. I'm like, what is this childhood friend's angst that we're getting all up in here? I'm here for it. Yes, please. I really like the way that Trigun is handling it. And all the villains in this episode, the climax, the cliffhanger, I'm not gonna be able to wait. I'm gonna have to watch the next episode and that's such a great feeling, right? I love when a show leaves you the feeling that you want to immediately watch the next episode and binge it. That's such a great feeling. I love it. So, yes. Yes, please. I'm all for it. So, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to wait, but, and then Legato, I love that Legato I was so worried Legato was not going to be, when we saw the little girl angel, which she's not a little girl, she's a woman. When we saw her in this, I was really worried that the show was not going to give us Legato, that she was going to be his replacement. And I'm so glad Legato's here. He's as nihilistic as ever. Legato in the OG series didn't have a lot of explanation or backstory. I'm assuming they do in the manga. Again, I'm eventually going to read the manga, so leave that out. Don't tell me. But I really was worried that we weren't going to get Legato, or that he was going to be as mysterious or not explained. I have a feeling we're going to get some more explanation on Legato. And one thing is, this does give me hope for season 2, because we're getting a lot more into details about Legato and Zazie and all of them. So, and we've like barely scratched the surface of the Gung Ho Gang. So I'm hoping that means that potentially 1, Wolfwood will live. Hope that's the case. And 2, that we're going to go into season 2 having more with the Gung Ho Gang that we'll have to deal with, right? I'm hoping that the confrontation with Knives at July is just a checkpoint, that we don't get to solving the Knives problem and getting to the point of Knives getting taken by Vash like he is at the end of the OG series. I hope that this episode 12 of this series is just like a checkpoint. We're not done with Knives. He escapes or something happens and it leads us into season 2. That'd be great. That'd be wonderful. Hope that happens. So, yes, but, what do we do? I wonder if we get Dynamite next episode. I'm curious about, we're getting more at this religious organization, tying in with what Priest William is doing with the experiments, which is tying into Knives, to Legato. Legato doesn't like his hair being brought up. My thing is, where we heard some saxophone music. Where is Mid-Valley? I need Mid-Valley in this. If we have to wait till season 2 to get Mid-Valley, I'm all for that. Fine, whatever. But y'all, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see where this goes, to see what we're going to get. I'm liking the subversion of Wolfwood's character, about Livio being included. I'm all here for it. Yes, please. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. I'm excited to hear your comments down below. Please, no manga spoilers. It's the only thing I ask, because I'm eventually going to read the manga at some point. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching episode 7 of Trigun Stampede very soon, so I'll see you there.